The Brutalist is a period drama about an architect immigrating to America and building his magnum opus. It has a long runtime, but it is absolutely superb. Let's talk about it. This movie kicks things off during World War II. We follow Laszlo, played by Adrien Brody. He's a Hungarian Jewish architect who's separated from his wife by the war and forced overseas to America. While facing several struggles as an immigrant, he ends up meeting a wealthy businessman named Harrison, played by Guy Pearce. After seeing Laszlo's innovative work, Harrison commissions him to build a massive community center, giving him his shot at a true American dream. And the American dream is what this movie is about. To some of you, that might sound inspiring and hopeful, but the reality is that chasing one's dreams can be a back-breaking journey. That's exactly what this story highlights. We follow a man enduring quite a lot while pursuing his goals. Things like poverty, class struggle, substance abuse, loneliness, and rejection. It might sound like they just went down the laundry list of things a World War II refugee could struggle with, but nothing feels forced or like it's too much. Laszlo is an interesting character because even throughout all of his struggles, the thing that defines him is his passion for his work. The building of Harrison's dream project is priority number one, seemingly giving us the idea that he is a true artist, never letting his vision out of sight. There are a few layers to his involvement with this project, but the personal attachment that he has with it is much deeper than one might expect, even going beyond his financial interest. In addition to the project, he expresses concerns for other people. He yearns for his wife and niece who are still stuck overseas. He also prioritizes other less fortunate people over himself. All of that really shows us that beneath the symptoms of his struggles, he is, for the most part, a man of virtue. This is a stark contrast from his employer Harrison, who's much more pretentious and superficial. They both share the same goal of erecting this community center, but it's much more of a vanity project for him, when for Laszlo, it is so much more than that. The movie shows us the impact that the war could have without focusing on the Holocaust and its cruelty, which was kind of a nice change of pace. Mainly because we are always getting World War II movies that cover the horrors and struggles spread across Europe, especially this season. I have no issues with that type of story at all, but it's nice to have some stories that do something different with that period. And a story about modern architecture feels unique for it. This movie's tone is often really tender. Even when the things happening are dark, they do still feel a little bit dark, but they don't feel hopeless, with the exception of like one moment later on in the movie. It was pretty dark. The darker elements of the movie are balanced out nicely with some light humor that's sprinkled throughout it. None of it feels cheesy or out of place, and it did get a few audible laughs out of me. Everything feels pretty realistic. There are times where you might expect certain conversations and situations to play out a certain way based on how World War II movies tend to play out, but then they play out in a less crowd-pleasing and more authentic way. For example, there is a scene about halfway through the movie that you would expect to be really cheerful and emotional, but it actually played out pretty stressfully because there was conflict between the characters when you would have expected them to have embraced one another. It is a beautiful movie despite having heavier subject matter. It's got good visual appeal with its mid-century modern architecture and lovely VistaVision film format. The score was also a big standout. It's sometimes really epic and almost triumphant, but there's also a lot of beautiful piano music that made some scenes feel really contemplative and emotional. There was like one scene where the piano music accompanied Harrison being Harrison, which felt strange because he's kind of a cheeky bastard, but it was otherwise perfect. The somber music really forces you into a state of sympathy, and with the story being really poignant and earnest, it was just a really nice touch. All of the award buzz this movie has been getting is very well earned. It is absolutely going to get a slew of nominations at every major award show. Adrien Brody is now one of the obvious frontrunners for Best Actor. Even when the details of what his character has endured haven't fully come to light yet, you still see the pain that he carries through Brody's wonderful performance. Guy Pearce and Felicity Jones are also great supporting actors. I'm not sure about awards potential. We very well could see them get some nominations. I'm just not quite as certain about them as I am with Brody. Before seeing this movie, Sing Sing was my favorite movie of the year. Now I'm not so sure. Right now I'm gonna say that they are tied for my favorites, and equally so are their respective lead actors' performances. So my only big complaint about this movie is that the third act kind of just felt like it was cutting corners just to get to the end. For example, there is a very important conversation that was allegedly had off screen. It's sometimes okay to leave things out for the viewers to figure out. We can use our imaginations to fill in the gaps, but this was a conversation that influences the last big scene before the epilogue. And I personally think that scene would have hit a lot harder had we heard the aforementioned conversation first. It just seems a little bit silly not to include it. Of course, there is something to be said about the movie needing to trim scenes because it's very long. It also feels a little bit slow to jump into the goods in the beginning, but when you think about it, it makes sense because it's just a long first act because the movie, again, is really long. So it clocks in at 3 hours and 36 minutes. I'm sure some of you will be immediately deterred by this, but the movie has enough interesting things going on that it really flies by. There is also an intermission halfway through, so if your only concern was holding your bladder for that long, don't stress because you will get a bathroom break. At first, I thought this intermission was exclusive to advanced screenings, but from what I've seen online, it was actually scripted into the movie, so it should be a part of its theatrical release. I'm not gonna lie though, once we got to the intermission, I was actually a little bit disappointed because I was really enjoying the movie, so I kind of just wanted it to keep rolling. For a movie this long, I was not expecting to come out of it looking forward to the next time that I would watch it, but that's the honest truth. I will probably see this again once it officially hits theaters because it's absolutely incredible. It's big, it's touching, it's heart-wrenching, it's silly, it's so many wonderful things, making it one of this year's best movies and easily one of my favorites. It comes to select theaters on December 20th and widens in January. I would highly recommend seeing this as soon as it comes out. Thank you for watching this review. If it brought you any value at all, please give it a like. It really does help the channel grow. I'll see you later this week with my review of Y2K.